Uh, awesome. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Wow, I'm pretty excited. We've concluded ExoLab-9, and you guys are going to jump aboard and join us in this investigation. And the beautiful thing about this second cohort that you guys are underway with right now is you're going to get the post-flight research about the same time that you're concluding this experiment. So although it may feel like a disadvantage, you weren't there when we launched the rocket, you weren't there live when we were in orbit, you're still going to have a chance to go through that process with a little mystery around each week. And boom, you're going to actually, hopefully, if this works right with the lab we've got working on some really cool post-flight research, you will be able to pin what you're doing and you have a nice continuous experience. That's going to be really exciting. Tony, I think you've queued up a nice little video to get people getting an understanding of what we're about to do. After we see that, Mike will describe ExoLab-9 in a little more detail. Tony, what do we got for you? What do you got for us?
Yes, I do. Hold on for a second.
Fantastic. And keep in mind, while Tony's queuing this up, we have ExoLab coming 12 months from now, in October 2022. So school schedules and, let's do a little planning, right? We're looking at the long-term benefits of spaceflight and research. All right, Tony, it's all yours.
All right, here we go. Can you hear the sound?
We can. So all science starts at the Kennedy Space Center before it ever gets to launch. We launched aboard the Falcon 9 on SpaceX Cargo Dragon.
Michael, do you remember what we are seeing here?
Yeah, this is spacecraft separation. They are actually looking at the bottom of the Dragon separating away from the booster. So it takes about 8 minutes to get into orbit, and then once orbit's established, then they jettison the second stage, and the spacecraft heads on to the space station. And there's an orbital sunrise.
And those leguminots are on that little spacecraft.
They are on there. And then you can see the Dragon. It's coming in closer. So it has to match velocity, 17,500 miles an hour, so that essentially they're in a parking orbit, and then they move in close enough to actually go through capture and berthing.
And while this is docking, we've got a nice laboratory, 8 inches by 8 inches by 4 inches, your ExoLab-9, 20 centimeters by 20 by 10. And inside it, we've got our experiment we're going to be starting. 3 tubes, each with 5 seeds in them. We'll learn a little bit more about this mission.
This is inside the U.S. National Laboratory on orbit. That's astronaut Shane Kimbrough poking his head up there. And that's our ExoLab, the silver box with the grip right there that he's reaching into. So that's where the flight experiment is. Sliding it into the locker so it's powered up.
And this is one school in El Centro, California, and they have decided to find enough funding to get 1 ExoLab per 4 students, and each team will own their ExoLab for the entire semester.
This is pretty exciting to me, Tony. Now you have a little competition going on in the classroom with the various variables that might be affecting these plants while they're here on Earth. Of course, what's really going to be exciting, what's happening up in orbit, right?
And also, seeing this side by side, you can really see the effect of microgravity on the plants.
We won't show you the whole experience, but that's what you're going to be revealing as we get into it. What will happen to our plants in orbit? Will everything go right, or will we be challenged with some interesting engineering problems? We're really excited about ExoLab-9, our 9th mission. Our first one launched in 2017, as some of you may know, on a SpaceX 10, right? Another cargo Dragon. I believe we've had 6 SpaceX missions, and several of them have been on the Northrop Grumman Cygnus. So Michael, why don't you share a little bit more about our experiment ExoLab-9? What are we doing, and why is it so important?
Right. So, I just had this conversation with my 4th graders. The amount of food that we need as human beings is almost ridiculous when you really start to think about it. And we go shopping every couple of days to replenish our pantries and our refrigerators, and you can't exactly do that when you're in space. So there's a lot of planning that has to go into the meals. We've relied heavily on shelf-stable food, either dehydrated or it's been irradiated, or thermal stabilized so that it has a long shelf life. A couple of problems with that. Even though it has a long shelf life, it's not infinite. In fact, it's really only a few months. Some of the critical nutrients in the food starts to break down with time. And so the longer that you're relying on that food, the less food value you're actually getting. And so the solution, the only really viable solution, because we can't keep sending food deliveries at a fast enough rate to, the moon, maybe. Mars, definitely not. Remember, it's going to take almost a year for a supply vehicle to get there. And if our food's really only good for a few months, it's not going to be in a great shape by the time it gets there. And we definitely can't have enough in that Orion capsule to sustain that crew of 4 for a 6-month mission on the surface of the moon. Just a little back of the envelope calculations, my students estimated that we'd need a 20-foot shipping container to hold the volume of food that would be required for that amount of time. So that's
and also they don't have a DoorDash.
No, there's no DoorDash. There's no Fresh Direct.
This is not a sponsorship. They're no way affiliated with Magnitude.
There's no way. So we with the space station we rely on resupply every couple of months. So we have to be able to farm some of the food that we need, because those vital nutrients that we lose, most of those come from the plants. And so by finding what kinds of plants grow well in the difficult, stressed environment of a space habitat, high carbon dioxide, light restrictions, water issues, changes in gravity and microgravity. We have all kinds of issues with how fluids move, both air and water, becomes a huge problem for humans, but for plants then in terms of growing. So we end up with all kinds of engineering challenges.
So why legumes, right?
Why legumes, right? All plants need nutrients that they get from the soil, and we can use chemical fertilizers, but those are heavy, they're dangerous, they're costly, not really sustainable. And so one of the special things that legumes do is they work with a soil bacteria called rhizobia in partnership to take the nitrogen that we're all swimming around in, that's essentially inert. It doesn't react with anything, but we all need that nitrogen. It's a core nutrient. It's what builds DNA. And all life requires nitrogen, as far as we know, to survive. It's a limiting growth nutrient. And the major pathway into the ecosystem is through legumes. And they form these nodules on their roots, little swelling bumps on the roots, where the rhizobia take up housekeeping, and they pull the nitrogen out of the air, and that gets converted into ammonia and nitrates and nitrites that the plants actually can use. They metabolize, fix it so that anything that eats those plants then is able to have a form of nitrogen that can be metabolized. So it's a super critical pathway. And this might allow us to then take that regolith on the moon or Mars, which doesn't have the organic matter in it, and start to make a viable soil that we could then grow more advanced plants in, plants that produce fruit. So we're not just eating microgreens or leafy greens. We can actually start to grow things like peppers and tomatoes and things that have
this is exciting
like
to me,
vitamin C and
oh my
like
goodness
that. Yeah.
This is exciting.
And the taste profiles, if you're relying on that packaged food or processed food, the taste profile is not so great, and you get menu fatigue.
I'd love to pull back a little bit. This is absolutely amazing. This is the reason why we want to investigate legumes, this cover crop. The farmers, they understand in terms of like keeping their soil together. Recently I saw a couple great documentaries. One was Kiss the Ground, really kind of talking about the challenge we have here on Spaceship Earth, right? Think about Bucky Fuller, right? We were on Spaceship Earth in 1969. And another one was, I just recently saw Biggest Little Farm, which is also a pretty amazing one. And these challenges about bringing the land back. Here we are imagining how we might put a garden on Mars. You got these perchlorates, these salts, and it's pretty much just rock and dust, right? There are no living things. It's Goldilocks. We got Venus, right, Michael? Oh my gosh, so much pressure and these sulfuric clouds at altitude. Not a pleasant place, very hot. And you got Mars, super thin atmosphere, kind of far away, a little cold relative to median temperature here on our beautiful blue ball. But Earth here, spaceship Earth, how might we put a garden on Mars, but also how might we rejuvenate our soil? We're depleting our soil, according to the United Nations. So Tony and I, when we founded Magnitude 8 years ago, we really wanted to imagine what we could do to connect the world together. So when you're joining us right now on ExoLab-9, even though this is the second cohort, we've had schools from around the world joining us, and expect other missions like this, both on this ExoLab as well as the ones in the future. How might we help figure out together making a living soil, rejuvenating what we have here on Earth, and perhaps a little bit of insight, some good fortune, and some really smart experts in those fields of study to help us get there. Wouldn't that be awesome? So, Michael, do you have any samples of our legumes, our little trifolium?
That's live, but what I can do is I can pull up images.
And you know what would be great, Tony? I think if we help explain how to set the kit up, I think that'd be wonderful. Just making sure everyone knows those steps. I think that'd really be a little housekeeping, but when you're watching this video, we wish we could be live all the time. Things are really happening. We got to get ready for all these big things. We're really looking forward to you joining us.
Sure. There is a page we have set up on our website where you can get a lot of useful video instruction on how to set up the videos. How to set up the experiment. Now, all you have to do is go to Magnitude.io, and you could hover ExoLab and go to this one page, the video sessions. And on this page, it has all the videos session that we had in the past. Perhaps you want to use them in sequence where your student can really follow along 1 week, week after week, so that they don't get the result before they actually get there. But anyway, let's particularly this section right here, it has all the recordings on how to set up your hardware, how to get started with your platform. For example, how to import all your students into your classes. And also recently we have released the Google Classroom integration. And for those schools who are using Google Classroom, we have made it a lot easier. Definitely use a single sign-on to sign on. And for the teachers, they can create classes, and all they have to do is sync it with their Google Classroom. Everything is all set for them. And this particular video right here is showing the student how to get their experiment started, whether they are at home or in a classroom.
And Tony, I have a question for you. Down at the bottom of that page that we're going to, folks, where we got all the information, we got a wonderful map of the world. I got a question. If you're watching this video, is your location on our map? We want to make sure our map is updated. People keep on coming in and sometimes we're missing a dot. So please reach out to us, hello@magnitude.io. And if you don't see your dot on the map, please give us a shout. We want to make sure you're being represented. I think we've got everybody, but they're coming in kind of hot.
Right. Now, this particular video right here is to introduce to you how easy it is to get connected with your Google Classroom. Once it is connected, you can work between the two different environments, the Google Classroom environment and also the Magnitude learning management environment. It's really, really seamless. And Michael can speak a little bit more about that. And this one video, also Google Classroom, how to move around within our platform. And this one video right here is when we first got together on how to prepare ourselves for the experiment. And this one video, we were watching the rocket launch all together. And
this is a great one for a starter, don't you think, Tony? To kick your class.
This is a really good one to get started with.
Yeah, in terms of sequence, perhaps the launch party, so you can watch that go up, and then the preparation video would be great. So I think that's a good overview, Tony. This is a wonderful resource. Once you're logged into the classroom, everybody, if you've got a question or a problem, down in the lower right-hand corner is a great help feature, frequently asked questions, and a way to reach out to the Magnitude team. We want to make sure you're up and running and connected to us during this mission. So we're really excited about you getting started. You can start with the next couple days here as we're getting, where we are mid-October 2021. And of course, in the future here, if you're going back and looking at our archives, welcome. It's good to see you from the future. Michael, do you want to talk a little bit about this and maybe talk a little bit about the mission itself?
Sure. So Tony just brought up the lessons library, and this has got curriculum broken down for early elementary, upper elementary, middle school, and upper school. So you can choose the lesson that makes the most sense for your students. And of course, the grade leveling just gives you the different levels. If you have a more advanced group or a group that needs a little more support, then choose accordingly. But we definitely recommend that teachers, you all take a look at this first lesson, the ExoLab Educator PD. And this is really your summary of the entire program from start to finish. It's another way to get to the videos that Tony was just talking about. And there's also a sequence of the lessons that we recommend if you have limited time and this isn't part of this is a piece of something you do with your students rather than your entire curriculum. We kind of pull out the most critical lessons, but everything from basic plant physiology to advanced topics in biology. We get into microscopy. There's a little bit of stuff in physics, so life and microgravity, and there's a piece on rocketry and some of the physics of that. So a wide variety of things available for you and your students, and you can assign each of those lessons to your class as you want. The other thing that just to kind of come back to the science a little bit, if I can share, Tony.
Yep.
I want to show okay, so I'll come back to this image. I'm sorry, I can't get to my tab. There we go. There. All right. So when you're in the experiment, and I'm not going to go into the experiment because it shows the space station. I want to get something far enough in. But when you're on the experiment viewer, one of your options, it'll be on the upper left side of your screen, says compare. And that allows you to pull up all of the other classrooms that are running the same experiment at that same point in time. So this is at day 15. And I had mentioned the nodulation, so I want to show you. I'm sorry, that's the ISS track. There we go. I wanted to show you exactly what it was you were looking for.
Very relevant.
Yeah. So we have our Clover seedlings here, and you can see how they were planted equidistant across the top of the media. There's 5 of them there, and the taproot running down. And what you're hoping you'll see are these little structures down in the roots. These are the nodules where the bacteria has infected the clover's root, and they're working in symbiosis. The rhizobia is producing the nitrogen compounds that the plant needs. The plant, through photosynthesis, is feeding the bacteria the glucose, the sugars that that it needs for energy. Just like all life, we need that glucose to power our cells. Plants have that one unique ability of capturing the light from the sun and can power themselves that way, but everything else relies on those stored glucose molecules.
You know what's interesting, Michael, is it's not always guaranteed. We don't always get nodulation.
No.
Right? We're
the
hoping
conditions, and that's part of why looking at this in microgravity is so important. This is an infection, and so if we're going to have something that's normally a pathogen become a symbiont, everything's got to be perfect. So there's this amazing biochemical communication that happens between these two organisms. The plant actually sends out a signal, if it's healthy, to invite an infection from the bacteria. And the bacteria comes and kind of does a knock, knock, I'm here, all good. If everything's cool, then the plant allows itself to have the root hairs infected by the bacteria. And then everything will proceed if things are in good shape. But any stress could close off those pathways. So what kind of, we're putting our plants through the stresses of changing gravity. The seed started out at 1G. We got up to 5G during launch. Then after 8 minutes of that, we're at microgravity. So they're not experiencing any gravity vector. We have changes in temperature. We have changes in lighting. The space station is an enclosed environment. So the carbon dioxide levels are much higher. As I mentioned, fluids don't move around. So you get bubbles of carbon dioxide around the plant, or bubbles of oxygen. So it's not able to get the gas exchange it needs. Same thing happens with water. Is the water getting into the roots in the way that it needs to? Our solution to that, rather than trying to do a potted media of some type and having liquid water, is we're giving our plants a gelatin to grow in, basically a gel of water. There's a protein in there called agar that's derived from a seaweed, and that just holds the water molecules in place. And we're not giving any extra nutrients. We're not putting any additional fertilizers in that media, because what we want to see is, will the nodulation happen, so that it's really forcing the plant to work for its food. We're not giving it any easy time. So those are, and that kind of opens it up. Your students may have all kinds of questions. Well, what if we did this? What if we did that? And I really encourage you to either bifurcate your lab, split it into the two tubes, and do the control settings on one tube and do something else on your second tube, or run the whole experiment again in a month with a completely new idea of testing. Change your photo period, how much light the plant has. Plants on Earth, they're adapted to approximately 12 hours of daylight and 12 hours of darkness. Obviously during the summer, that's a little bit longer period. In the winter, it's a little bit shorter period, but we kind of average out at that 12 and 12. How do they react to longer or shorter photo periods? Mars has a very similar photo period to Earth. It's just a day is just a little bit longer. The moon, think about this, 14-hour long daylight, followed by 14 days of daylight, followed by 14 days of darkness.
Let's talk about the temperature swings also, right?
And then we've got it up into around 300 degrees in the sunshine, and about minus 300 in the shade.
Not a place. Yeah. Those CLIPS missions with the Artemis project, we expect mid-decade to have a woman and a person of color on the surface of the moon. Wow. And these CLIPS missions are landing these rovers and other experiments on the surface. They're really expecting to last just 2 weeks. And as a kid growing up with Apollo, I didn't realize that our astronauts, when they're landing on the moon, were doing it during the twilight hours, because it would have got way too cold or way too toasty. And so that's really kind of neat. Can we get our plants to survive in an extreme condition like that? That's the first stop outside of planet Earth on the way to Mars and other cool destinations. I'll be kind of old when it all happens, but I'm looking forward to it. Michael,
we want to get past the camping trip. That's, Apollo, there's so much that we learned, so much science that was done. But as Ted said, in these twilight days, you got a few days. It's a camping trip. You piled into the camper with a couple of friends.
There you go. Let's go down to Baja.
Three-day trip. You spend a couple of hours or days on the surface and then back home again. So you can kind of make anything work in a week's time, right?
There you go.
We're talking about a crew of 4 to 6 for 6, 8, 12 months at a time. This isn't a camping and little hiking trip. This is major extended habitation, long-term, and hopefully continuous presence, right?
That's amazing.
That will always have a crew there working.
Absolutely amazing. In our lifetimes, the commercialization of space is happening right now. Private astronauts are going on. So there's some young person here probably involved in ExoLab that may go or know someone that is going to end up doing some of this stuff, maybe they're just taking a little holiday in orbit. I don't know. William Shatner just went up yesterday on Blue Origin. It's suborbital, but it's kind of nice to see he punched through the Kármán line. It's all happening right now. A decade from now, 2030, 2031, Earth and Mars are going to get the closest together just 4 times. And that's the most effective time from an engineering perspective. You're using the energy of the planets really to do this Hohmann transfer to go between the 2 planets. That's your train schedule, right? How would you guys like to put a garden on Mars, right? Before we're all too old. It can probably happen, but you got to schedule your ride and you got to figure out what you're doing. We're in low Earth orbit right now, kind of halfway between the celestial and the terrestrial. As we imagine what we want to put on the surface of Mars, let's figure out how we can make our planet here a little better, right? Tony, is there anything that we're missing here that people should know about to make sure they get started ExoLab-9 in the right way?
I think we have covered everything. Definitely, if you run into any questions, just email us on the lower right hand corner of your page. On our learning management system, there is a little blue button. All you have to do is click on that. There is a very useful FAQ. You can find a lot of answer from there. And if you can't find your answer, just email us. There is a tab where you can click to send us a support ticket. And within 12 hours, someone will reply back to you.
Fantastic. And Michael, why don't you send us out? I'm a couple minutes late for my next meeting. Everyone, we're excited that you're joining us on ExoLab-9. We're looking forward to finding out and discovering together how we might be able to do some of the challenges and interesting experiments that Michael's brought up with us. Michael?
Yeah, so happy to have you all with us. Teachers, go through the protocols with your students, familiarize yourself with all the materials, look at the safety precautions, and get those ExoLabs up and running. All the protocols are on this lesson library, and I think that kind of wraps it for this episode. And so we have Legos in space.
Perfect. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Michael. Catch up with you guys later.